Welcome to our deep dive on cultivating mental strength. You shared Amy Morin's 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do.
Really fascinating stuff.
Especially given what you've been going through lately.
Huh.
It seems like you're ready to tackle those challenges head on, and I have a feeling this deep dive is going to give you some serious tools for your self-improvement journey.
Absolutely. What's so cool about Morin's approach is that she blends solid research with real-life stories.
Right.
It makes these concepts really stick. So we're going to unpack not just what to do, but the science behind why it works.
I love that. Okay, let's dive into Chapter 1. Don't waste time feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
Reading about Amy Morin's personal tragedies was heartbreaking. Losing her mother, her husband, and then fiancé all within a few years.
Oh, sister.
But how she channeled that pain into understanding mental strength, it's incredibly inspiring.
It really is. That's where she pinpointed the danger of self-pity.
Yeah.
Self-pity keeps your brain stuck in a loop thinking, I deserve better. But gratitude flips the script. Yeah. Gratitude is about appreciating what you have. Right here, right now. And there's this fascinating research from UC Davis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it shows that people who actively practice gratitude have less anxiety and depression, they have stronger relationships, and even sleep better.
Powerful stuff.
Right.
Really powerful.
And you remember that story about Marlo Runyon, the legally blind Olympic runner?
Oh, of course.
It just blew me away that she views her blindness as a gift that pushes her further, turning a perceived weakness into a strength.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway, right? Gratitude is not about denying challenges. It's choosing where you focus your energy. So what if instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you started each day by writing down 3 things you're grateful for? It could be something simple like a good cup of coffee or a sunny morning.
Right.
A small shift that can have a huge ripple effect.
I love that. Okay, Chapter 2. Don't give away your power.
This one reminded me of a friend who was constantly bending over backwards to please her in-laws. Always afraid to say no. It was really draining her energy and making her resentful.
It's the classic people-pleasing trap.
Yeah.
It's all about boundaries.
Right.
When you give away your power, you're essentially letting other people dictate your choices and your emotions, even your sense of self-worth. It's like you're handing them the remote control to your life.
Wow.
Psychologically, this can lead to a feeling of learned helplessness. You start to believe that you have no control over your circumstances. And that can be incredibly disempowering.
It makes sense. So how do you reclaim that power? I remember the book talked about Stephen McDonald, the police officer who was paralyzed in the line of duty.
Oh, yeah.
And he chose to forgive the person who shot him.
I mean, it's an absolutely remarkable story of resilience.
It seems almost impossible.
Yeah, and it highlights the core of what it means to retain your power. It's about choosing your response. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react.
Right.
Forgiveness, in this sense, isn't about condoning the act. It's about freeing yourself from the bitterness and anger that can keep you trapped in the past.
So powerful.
It really is.
Okay, Chapter 3, and I think this one might resonate with a lot of people. Don't shy away from change.
Yeah.
I know I've definitely been guilty of clinging to comfort zones, even when I knew it was time to move on.
We all have. Change is inherently uncomfortable. It disrupts our sense of equilibrium. Our brains are wired to seek safety and familiarity.
Right.
So anything that shakes things up can trigger,
Fear.
Yeah, fear and resistance.
Yeah.
Imagine your life as a house.
Okay.
You've decorated it just the way you like. Everything's in its place.
Yeah.
But then you realize the foundation is cracking. You need to make repairs, maybe even rebuild. But the thought of all that disruption is daunting.
That's such a good analogy. I remember the book shares this incredible story about Mary Deming. She lost both of her parents and then was in a life-altering car accident. But instead of letting those tragedies break her, she started a nonprofit to fight breast cancer and support her community.
Wow.
Talk about turning pain into purpose.
Yeah, that's the power of change, right? Sometimes it takes a major shakeup to push us out of our comfort zones, into a space where we can discover new strengths and passions. But here's the thing. Change doesn't have to be a passive experience. You can actively choose to embrace change by focusing on the potential benefits.
Okay.
Setting realistic goals and breaking the process down into smaller steps.
Right.
It's like learning a new dance, It might feel awkward at first, but with practice, you'll find your rhythm.
I love that. Okay, on to Chapter 4. This one feels especially relevant in today's world. Don't focus on things you can't control.
Hmm.
It's so easy to get caught up in the 24/7 news cycle, social media drama, and that constant feeling that we should be doing more, more, more. It's exhausting.
Absolutely. We live in a culture of hyperstimulation.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with information and expectations.
Right.
And it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to control everything,
Yeah,
which can lead to anxiety, overwhelm, and ultimately burnout.
I feel that.
The key is to recognize the difference between what you can influence and what you can't. Think of it like you're on a train.
Okay.
You're on a train. There are things you can control, like choosing your seat, reading a book, or having a snack. But you can't control the speed of the train or the scenery outside your window.
That's such a great visual. So how do we apply that to our daily lives? I remember the book mentioned Terry Fox, the Canadian athlete who ran across Canada with an artificial leg to raise money for cancer research.
Incredible.
It's just a mind-blowing example of focusing on what you can do, even in the face of incredible adversity.
Right. He couldn't control the cancer, but he could control his response to it.
Yeah.
So powerful.
So powerful.
Ask yourself, what are the things within your sphere of influence? Where can you make a positive impact? It doesn't matter how small.
Right.
It all matters.
Right. Such great advice. Okay, moving on to chapter 5. I think we all struggle with this one to some degree. Don't worry about pleasing everyone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've definitely fallen into the trap of trying to be everything to everyone, which is impossible.
It is.
And exhausting.
And it's often rooted in a fear of rejection or a need for validation.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
You can't please everyone, and trying to do so will only leave you feeling depleted and resentful. The book shared a story about Megan,
Oh, yeah.
who was so busy trying to meet everyone else's needs that she ended up neglecting her own family. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of people-pleasing.
It is. And the crazy thing is, often the people we're trying to please don't even notice or appreciate our efforts. It's like we're running on this hamster wheel of approval.
Exactly.
Going nowhere fast.
And that's where setting healthy boundaries comes in. It's about understanding your own needs and values and communicating them clearly and assertively.
Right.
It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to putting everyone else first.
Yeah.
But think of it as an act of self-care.
Yeah.
You're protecting your energy, your emotional well-being.
Okay, we're making great progress. On to chapter 6. This one really hit home for me. Don't fear taking calculated risks. The book told this story about Dale, a really talented woodworker, who was terrified to start his own business after a past failure. I think we can all relate to that fear of putting yourself out there.
We all can. Fear of failure is one of the biggest things that hold people back from pursuing their dreams.
Yeah.
But here's what's fascinating. Studies show that we're actually terrible at assessing risk. We tend to overestimate the negative consequences and underestimate our ability to cope. So that fear is often based on distorted perceptions rather than reality.
It makes sense. I know I've definitely talked myself out of opportunities because of those what-if scenarios that probably never would happen.
Right.
So how do we get better at taking calculated risks without letting fear take over? Any tips from the book that stand out?
Absolutely. One thing Morin suggests is breaking down the risk into smaller, manageable steps.
Okay.
Instead of looking at the whole mountain, focus on that first base camp.
Okay.
And then shift your focus from potential losses to potential gains.
I like that.
So, what are the possible benefits of taking this risk? You might be surprised by what you discover.
Okay, that's really helpful. I like the idea of focusing on those small wins. All right, let's move on to chapter 7. Don't dwell on the past. This one's tough, especially after loss or heartbreak. I was really touched by how Amy Morin wove her own experiences with grief into this chapter. It's a powerful reminder that while the past shapes us, it doesn't have to define us.
Yeah. It's a delicate balance, right?
Yeah.
We need to acknowledge and process our past experiences, but we can't let them hold us captive. And, forgiveness is a key part of that process. It's not about condoning hurtful actions, but rather releasing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment. It's about choosing to move forward with a lighter heart.
That's beautifully put. Okay, chapter 8. Don't make the same mistakes over and over. This one reminds me of that saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Right.
We all have patterns and habits that no longer serve us, but breaking free can be a real challenge.
It is. Our brains are wired for efficiency, so they love to create shortcuts and routines.
Yeah.
The problem is sometimes those routines become counterproductive.
Yeah.
So we get stuck in a loop of negative thinking or behavior. It can feel impossible to escape.
I remember the book shares a story about Christy, a mom who was caught in this cycle of yelling at her kids.
Yeah.
She recognized it wasn't working, but she just felt powerless to stop. I think a lot of parents can relate to that.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is that Morin highlights the importance of self-compassion in this process. Instead of beating yourself up for past mistakes, approach yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend.
Right.
Acknowledge that you're human, that you're learning, and that every day is a new opportunity to make different choices.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to chapter 9. Don't resent other people's success. In today's social media-driven world, it's so easy to get caught up in comparison.
Oh, yeah.
We see everyone else's highlight reels, and it can make us feel inadequate or even resentful.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
It really is.
And it's often based on a scarcity mindset,
Okay.
the belief that there's not enough success or happiness to go around.
Right.
The book shares a story about James, who was consumed with resentment over his ex-wife's seemingly perfect life and parenting choices.
Yeah.
It was eating him alive.
It's so easy to get caught up in those negative thought spirals.
It is.
We focus on what other people have that we don't, and it can blind us to all the good things in our own lives.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that everyone's journey is different. We're all running our own races.
Right.
Comparing ourselves to others is like trying to run in someone else's shoes.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
It's just not going to work.
So how do we shift from that scarcity mindset to one of abundance and gratitude? I remember the book shared a story about Herb Brooks,
Okay.
the legendary hockey coach, who was cut from the Olympic team right before they won gold.
Wow.
Instead of feeling bitter, he chose to celebrate his former teammates' success.
Incredible. What an example of turning potential resentment into genuine support. His story highlights the power of focusing on your own path to success,
Yeah.
rather than getting caught up in comparing yourself to others. And it reminds us that celebrating other people's wins doesn't diminish our own. It can actually inspire us to achieve greater things.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Let's take a pause right here and let those first 9 chapters really sink in. This is some powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff.
Okay, are you ready to jump back into those last 4 chapters?
Yeah, I'm ready to...
Of 13 things mentally strong people don't do.
You know what's so fascinating about these don'ts is that they're not like rigid rules.
Right.
They're more like guideposts, along a winding path.
Yeah.
They help you see where you might be getting tripped up. But ultimately, you choose your own adventure.
I love that.
And building mental strength, just like any adventure, requires both courage and commitment. You're going to stumble, you're going to face challenges.
Right.
But that's where the real growth happens.
I love that analogy. Okay, chapter 10. Don't give up after the first failure.
Yeah.
This one feels so important,
Absolutely.
especially in a culture that often glorifies overnight success and instant gratification.
Right. We're bombarded with these images of people, who just effortlessly achieve their goals.
Yeah.
But what we don't see are the years of hard work, the setbacks, the moments of self-doubt.
Yeah.
Failure is an inevitable part of any growth process. How we respond to those setbacks, that's what truly matters.
Right. Do we let them define us? Or do we use them as fuel for learning and growth? I remember the book talked about J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Her first book was rejected by 12 different publishers before it was finally accepted.
Oh, wow.
Imagine if she'd given up after the first or second or even 11th rejection.
Oh, my gosh. Her persistence is legendary.
It is.
It's like she saw each failure as valuable data,
right.
just refining her approach until she achieved her goal.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really fascinating research on this concept of grit. The ability to persevere in the face of adversity. Studies show that people with high levels of grit are more likely to achieve their goals, even when they're faced with setbacks.
Exactly. It's about having that unwavering belief in yourself and your vision.
So how do we cultivate that grit? Any tips from the book that come to mind?
Well, one thing Morin emphasizes is the importance of setting realistic goals.
Okay.
When our expectations are too high or our timelines are too short, it's easy to get discouraged when things don't go as planned.
Right.
But if we break down our goals into smaller, more manageable steps,
Okay.
those small wins, they can fuel our motivation and keep us moving forward.
I like that. It's like that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly. It's also important to surround yourself with a supportive community.
Right.
When you're facing challenges, having people who believe in you and encourage you and who can offer a different perspective can make all the difference.
Okay, let's move on to chapter 11. which is Don't Fear Alone Time. I have to admit, this one was a game changer for me personally. I used to feel this pressure to be constantly connected, constantly on.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, but learning to embrace solitude has been so transformative.
I'm so glad to hear that.
It has been.
I think in our hyper-connected world,
Yeah.
it's so easy to lose touch with ourselves.
Right.
To get caught up in the noise and the expectations of others.
Yes.
But solitude allows us to reconnect with our inner compass.
Yes.
It helps us clarify our values,
Mm-hmm.
recharge our batteries. It's so important.
And there are so many different ways to practice solitude, right? It's not just about sitting in a silent room meditating, although that can be amazing.
Of course.
It can also be about taking a walk in nature, journaling, reading a book, or even just, enjoying a cup of tea in quiet contemplation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's about finding what works for you and creating that space in your life for those moments of intentional disconnection.
Yeah.
And research shows that solitude has numerous benefits, including reduced stress, improved creativity, and enhanced emotional regulation.
Yeah, it's like giving your mind a spa day.
Absolutely.
Okay, chapter 12, Don't Feel the World Owes You Anything. I think this speaks to the importance of humility and hard work.
It does.
Yeah.
In a society that often emphasizes instant gratification and entitlement, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking we deserve certain things without putting in the effort.
Right.
True fulfillment, that comes from earning our successes,
Mm-hmm.
from contributing to something bigger than ourselves, and from appreciating what we have.
Absolutely. The book shared a story about Lucas, who felt entitled to special treatment at work because of his expertise.
Oh.
And his arrogance, his sense of entitlement, really, it ended up hindering his own progress.
Oh, wow. It's a classic example of how a sense of entitlement can backfire.
It is.
When we believe we deserve something without putting in the effort, it creates resentment, conflict, and it disconnects us from others.
And on the flip side, the book also highlighted Sarah Robinson, who, while she was battling brain cancer, focused her energy on helping other cancer patients.
That's incredible.
It is. She didn't feel sorry for herself or demand any kind of special treatment. She simply chose to make a difference with the time she had.
It's so powerful. It's a reminder that true fulfillment often comes from serving others. From contributing our talents and resources to make the world a better place. It's about shifting our focus from what's in it for me to how can I make a positive impact?
I love that shift in perspective. Okay, we've arrived at the final chapter, Don't Expect Immediate Results.
Mm-hmm.
This one hits close to home for me, and I suspect for many of our listeners as well.
Absolutely.
In our fast-paced, instant gratification culture, it's easy to get impatient with the process of personal growth and change.
It is. We want the quick fix, the magic bullet, the overnight transformation.
Yeah.
But real lasting change, that takes time, effort, and consistency. It's like planting a garden. You can't just throw some seeds on the ground and expect a bountiful harvest the next day.
Right.
You need to nurture those seeds, water them, weed them, and be patient as they slowly sprout and grow.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Thank you.
And I think it highlights the importance of embracing the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Right.
Instead of getting discouraged by setbacks, acknowledge your progress.
Right.
No matter how small. Those small victories can fuel your motivation and remind you that you're moving in the right direction.
I love that. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
I know we have.
We've explored all 13 things that mentally strong people don't do, and we've uncovered some powerful strategies for building mental resilience and really embracing the journey of personal growth. But now I'm curious, what are your biggest takeaways?
Right.
What resonated with you most, and, what do you can do with this newfound knowledge?
As we wrap up, it's interesting to think about what it really means to be mentally strong. It's not about suppressing emotions.
Right, definitely not.
It's really about developing self-awareness, and learning to manage our thoughts and feelings, and then choosing empowering actions.
Right.
Showing up for yourself, even when it's hard.
It's like we're building a mental gym.
Yes.
Equipping ourselves with the tools.
Exactly.
And the techniques to navigate the inevitable challenges that life throws our way. And like any good workout, it requires consistency and effort.
Absolutely. And just like physical exercise, building mental strength can be tailored to your individual needs and goals.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So true.
It's about experimenting, finding what works for you, and incorporating those practices into your daily life.
I'm thinking back to those 13 don'ts.
Yeah.
Is there one that you think would be especially relevant to our listener, given what they've been going through?
I think, based on what you've shared, don't dwell on the past might be really powerful for them right now. It's understandable to feel stuck in the past.
Of course.
Especially after experiencing, those difficult life events.
Yeah.
But the past doesn't have to define us.
Right.
And we always have the power to choose how we move forward.
It's so important. And it ties into what we were talking about earlier with forgiveness, right? Forgiving ourselves, forgiving others. And again, it's not about condoning hurtful actions.
Right.
But it's about freeing ourselves from the burden
Exactly.
of anger and resentment.
It's about reclaiming our power.
Yeah.
And choosing to focus on the present moment. It's like that Buddhist saying.
Oh, yeah.
Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Ooh, so true. Yeah.
It only hurts us in the long run.
Absolutely. And when we release that anger and resentment, we create space for healing and growth. That's like clearing out the clutter to make room for something new and beautiful to emerge.
It reminds us that even in the midst of difficult times, there's always hope. There's always the possibility for transformation and renewal.
Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one piece of advice you would offer our listener as they kind of embark on this journey of cultivating mental strength?
I would say start small.
Okay.
Choose one don't that resonates with you and commit to practicing it for a week, even just for a day.
Okay.
Notice how it feels to shift your perspective, to choose a different action, to embrace a new way of thinking.
Right. Yeah.
And remember, progress is not linear. There will be ups and downs, moments of doubt, frustration.
I've been there.
But the key is to keep practicing, to keep learning, and keep believing in your own capacity for growth.
That's beautiful. So to our listener out there, we hope this deep dive has empowered you with some valuable insights and practical strategies for building your mental strength. Remember, you are not alone on this journey.
You're not.
And even the smallest steps, when taken consistently, can lead to amazing transformations.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.